Hello and welcome to Rosa Laura. If this is your first time on the channel, it's so lovely to meet you. And if you're returning, it's so wonderful to have you back. My name is Rosa, I'm a digital artist, and today I'm working on a commission for everyone. I wanted to take this time with this really awesome commission that I was able to do and talk a little bit more on the back end of being an artist, what goes into working with a client, communicating about a commission, payment, and all that other stuff. I wanted to have a little bit of a focus on how much I communicate with a client during the process. And everything going forward, I want to put a little disclaimer on because this is the way that I handle my clients and I communicate with them. Every artist is going to have a bit of a different approach. They have different limitations as far as things like alterations. They have, preferences as far as when and how they're paid. But I wanted to talk a little bit about my process because I really love being an artist and I love doing commissions for clients. And I wanted to kind of open up on how I like things to work. And maybe if you're an aspiring artist or a younger artist, maybe it can be of use to you. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about is payment. Get that sort of awkward thing off the table. It's perfectly fine to talk to your client about how much this piece is going to be. You should probably have a formula to help you figure out how much it is going to be. I have a commission sheet, and so I'm able to send my clients over the commission sheet. They can kind of pick what level of art that they want to have, and then we usually talk about the background. Having a background is more money for me. Having extra figures is a discounted price. It's 2/3 of the price of the first figure, and talking about that amount together can be really important. I decided that this background in particular was going to be $40. I knew that there was going to be some perspective stuff going on. I knew I was going to do some bottles in the background, so I wanted to make sure that I was giving myself a fair shot with it all. But when you look at an artist commission sheet, you should be able to figure out how much it's going to be for each level. For me, I have a bust, I have a 3/4 body, I have a full body, and I want to make sure that my clients are able to choose between a couple of different styles that I like to work in, mainly my lined style and my unlined style. As far as when your artist gets paid, I like to do my payment in 2 rounds. Some artists like to be paid completely upfront, and I have nothing against that. Some artists like to be paid right at the end, which also I understand. For me, especially with new clients, I like to do a 2-part process. When I reach the sketch stage where I feel like the concept has been solidified, I like to take the first half of my payment and then the second half of my payment upon completion, but when I haven't sent the client the file yet. I don't like feeling distrustful of my clients. I feel like I should be able to trust them, but hey, it's a scary world out there for artists and for anybody doing freelance work. So a big thing that I want to say to those of you who are working on online platforms is make sure that you protect yourself. You don't necessarily need to use a sort of conglomerate like VGen. I see a lot of people using VGen. I just like using PayPal for my own things, but make sure that you have a system that works for you and you're able to track how much you're making and who is giving you what. I like to go in 2 rounds just because it has a little bit more of a motivating factor for me going into the second half, or even just completing the work. I like the feeling of, hey, there's payment for me waiting on the other side once I'm done. But also having that earlier little bit of payment helps me feel like I have a little bit of juice to help me on my way. When communicating with my clients, I do like to use Discord. I know it's a little bit more informal, and some more older school artists, even on the internet, might want to use something like email. And I think that that works for a lot of people. But for me, I like having the immediacy of being able to send my client pictures of the process at different points and making sure that I get their responses pretty quickly. I do have a tip for those of you who are just starting out in the commission sphere, or even if you need to hear this because you are somebody who works on commission and it might feel a little bit good to hear it from an outside source. Whenever you send a client a picture of something in progress and you say, hey, I'm looking for approval on this, Can you, confirm that, hey, this nose looks right, or the hair is falling in the right way, or that they like the color palette that you've chosen? Don't keep working. I need to tell myself this all the time. Sometimes I'll just send clients an update on like, hey, here's where the lines are at. But if you are looking for direct feedback from your client, do not move forward until the client has told you that it's okay to do so. I have wasted hours going back and correcting mistakes that I didn't need to do because I was absolutely convinced that my client would love what I was doing and no alterations were necessary. Author's note, alterations were necessary. And that's not a bad thing. When I communicate with my clients, I try to make sure that I'm being really direct with, hey, this is what has changed, or this is what's different, and here's where I'm going next. So communicating with my client, hey, the lines are done, I'm going to start on flats, or here's the first pass at coloring, we're going to go into shading, or hey, I'm doing some work on the background. What do you think should be here? I think that all of those aspects are really important when you're communicating with a client. Sometimes you'll have clients that are more artistically inclined and they'll have specific ideas. Sometimes you're going to work with clients that don't have as many artistic ideas, and sometimes we'll have a hard time communicating what exactly they want. So being able to take your time and really be able to work with that client one-on-one is going to be really important. That also means not rushing yourself or rushing your client in terms of getting those responses. I know that can be a little bit difficult, and it can also be a little frustrating. I have had clients before where I send them updates and I'm waiting, 24 plus hours for that response. And it can be easy to feel like, oh, well, I don't want to lose momentum. I don't want to really stop this piece because I'm really feeling it right now. I just wish I could get a little check-in from my client. But that's part of the job. When you are doing art for someone kind of at distance, you need to make sure that part of that distance is going to be that time. So make sure that you exercise a level of patience for your client. I wanted to show the series of pictures that I actually sent to my client as I was working on this piece. So first I had the basic concept. So where the figures are going to be, the very rough outlines, and then the build of each character. Then I moved on to floating heads. Making sure that I got the reference right and that these faces were accurate was really important to me. So I made sure to send over sort of that floating heads with the bodies underneath so that my client can see how they were posed. Then the final concept sketch, so kind of a step up from the original concept where you can see those little details that are starting to come together. After that, I did a couple of updates as far as lines, so like initial lines and then lines with the background. And then things really change once I get to flats. I like to fill out most of the background before I get to the flat coloring. So as you can see at this point in the drawing, everybody looks very cartoony because there's no shading on them, but I wanted to make sure that all of the initial colors for skin and hair were looking good. After that, I move on to first pass at shading, and then there's a couple of little adjustments where I say, hey, I'm playing with this idea. Hey, I textured this a certain way. What do you feel about that? And by the time we're done with that process, everything's finished. This commission was a blast for me. I love working with multiple characters together in the same scene. So we have, in order from left to right, Louisa, Durant, Teddy, and Wade. This commission I kind of called the Travelers in my head because they are characters for a Traveler game, and I had an absolute blast working with them. And the client is a client that I have had before, which does help in terms of familiarity. This picture that I have up is of a previous commission that I did for this client, and he actually asked that the bar, or sort of the overall feel of the picture that I did for this commission, had a sort of similar feel, almost like they could be at the same bar but they're on different sides. It's always really interesting to look at past work that you've done and compare it to what you have now. The commission that I put up was actually from 2022, and this commission is being made in 2025, so it's 3 years apart, and I feel like the difference for my work as an artist has really progressed since then. As far as me working on commission, I try not to take on too much at once. Usually the maximum amount of commissions that I have in my queue at any given time is 2, and my average length of time for completing a commission is about 3 weeks to a month. Sometimes commissions are really quick for me, the turnaround could be a week. Other times they take about a month and a half. It really depends on the level of complexity, what's happening in my life, because I do have a day job that I work really hard at, and what the client is able to communicate to me as far as what they want, what they need, reference pictures, and the like. You never know what somebody's going to need or what kinds of changes that they'll require until you're deep into the commission. Sometimes the requests that people have can be not shocking, but they can surprise you. When you work as an artist on commission, make sure that you have healthy boundaries that separate you from your client, but also that you have limits on what you're willing to do and not do. If you have certain lines that you're not willing to go over, like you don't want to do work that would be considered not safe for work, you don't want to draw nudity, you don't want to draw sex, then you should put that on your commission sheet. Me personally, I have no problem doing those sorts of things, though unfortunately it means that those pieces will never see the light of day on YouTube, which is really unfortunate. I do have some pieces that I have done on commission that are not safe for work that I have hosted on my Patreon. So if you're interested in seeing some of those commissions or just fun art that I've done for me, feel free to check something out over there. It's on Patreon. But as far as this commission goes, I think that the really big challenge is just making sure that these 4 bodies are working together in physical space. As an artist, you might be somebody who's only comfortable doing something like portrait work, or you might only want to do one character at a time. Lots of people out there are looking for artists to do things like Dungeons & Dragons references for their characters, so there's definitely a market for them. But make sure you as an artist, you protect yourself, and you make sure to put up boundaries that feel good for you. I hope that talking about my process as far as working on commission has been useful for you as an artist, and if you aren't an artist, that it's been interesting to see what it's like working for somebody else. As far as this group goes, I love the variety of expressions and poses and drinks that I was able to get at with this group. Travel on, travelers. Thank you so much to my patrons that help me make art, but especially Banjo, Confogleclips, Deator, and Firepit. You guys are wonderful. And of course, thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to take a look at another video, there'll be something else on the screen. And if you like what I do, you can support me on Patreon. And remember, it's all gonna be okay. See you next time.